The corporate Christmas party was in full swing when Marcus stepped up to the grand piano. He was not supposed to be there. The maintenance supervisor had only come to fix a broken chandelier, but his 10-year-old daughter Emma had begged him to stay just for a moment. She loved seeing the big decorated tree and the fancy people in their evening clothes. Catherine Winters stood near the window, talking with board members about quarterly projections. At 53, she had built Winters Technologies from nothing into a company worth hundreds of millions. Her red dress was elegant and expensive. Her smile was practiced and professional. Everything in her life was carefully controlled. Marcus sat at the piano, and his rough carpenter hands hovered over the keys. Emma stood beside him with hope shining in her eyes. She had asked him to play something beautiful, something that would make people smile. He had not played in public for 30 years, not since he was 25 and full of dreams about becoming a composer. Life had taken him in different directions. A brief marriage that ended, a daughter who became his entire world, bills that needed paying, dreams that got folded up and put away. But tonight, with Emma watching, he let his fingers find the keys. The melody that emerged was soft at first, a gentle progression of notes that seemed to ask a question. Then it grew stronger, more confident. The room began to quiet as people turned to look. Catherine was mid-sentence when the music reached her. She stopped talking, her champagne glass tilted slightly in her hand. That melody, she knew that melody. Her heart began to pound in a way it had not done in decades. The board member beside her asked if she was all right, but Catherine could not answer. She was 22 again, standing in a small apartment near the university. A young man with kind eyes was playing an old, upright piano. His name was Marcus Riley, and he was a teaching assistant in her business ethics class. They had fallen in love the way young people do, completely and without reservation. He wrote songs, and she wrote business plans. He said he would compose a symphony. She said she would build an empire. They promised to do it together. He had written her a melody on her birthday. This melody, he called it Catherine's Song, and he played it for her while rain fell against the windows. He said it captured everything he felt but could not put into words. She had cried and kissed him and believed their future was set in stone. But life is rarely that simple. Her father became ill. The family business was failing. Catherine had to choose between love and duty. She chose duty. She left school, left the city, left Marcus without explanation because she could not bear to see the hurt in his eyes. She saved her family's company and then sold it, used the money to start her own venture, worked 18-hour days for years, built her empire just as she had promised, but she built it alone. She had looked for Marcus once about 15 years ago, found out he had married. She told herself she was happy for him, told herself she had made the right choice, convinced herself that first love was just a chapter that everyone closes. Now Catherine walked toward the piano, as if in a dream. The crowd parted without her noticing. Marcus was lost in the music. His eyes were closed. Emma watched him with pure love. As the final notes faded, the room erupted in applause. Marcus opened his eyes and saw Catherine standing 3 feet away. For a moment, neither of them moved. Time collapsed. 30 years vanished. Catherine said his name so quietly that only he could hear it. Marcus stood slowly. His face showed shock, and then recognition, and then something deeper. Catherine turned to her assistant without taking her eyes off Marcus. She asked him to take Emma to get hot chocolate and Christmas cookies from the dessert table. The young woman seemed confused but did as she was told. Emma looked back at her father with curiosity, but went happily enough when she saw the elaborate dessert display. Catherine and Marcus stood facing each other while the party continued around them. She asked how he knew that song. Her voice was shaking. Marcus said he wrote it a long time ago, for someone he loved. Catherine closed her eyes. She asked if he hated her for leaving. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said hate was too heavy a thing to carry for 30 years. He said he was hurt and confused for a while. His marriage had been an attempt to move forward, but it ended after 3 years. His ex-wife was a good person, but they both knew his heart was not fully present. When Emma was born, everything changed. She became his purpose. His music became something he did for her. Bedtime songs and silly tunes on Saturday mornings. Catherine asked if he ever finished his symphony. Marcus smiled sadly. He said life became the symphony. Not the one he planned, but the one he was given. Catherine felt tears on her cheeks and was surprised because she had not cried in years. She told him about her father and the failing business, about the impossible choice she faced, about how she tried to call him once but lost her courage, about how she looked him up years later and saw he had moved on. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked why she never came back, why she let him believe she simply did not care. Catherine said she was afraid. Afraid he would ask her to choose again. Afraid she would make the same choice. Afraid that love was not enough when the world demanded so much. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood, even if it still hurt. The song ended there for us, he said. But it does not have to end that way for you. Catherine did not understand. Marcus gestured around the elegant party. He said she built something remarkable, something that would last beyond her. But what would she leave in the hearts of people? Would they remember the quarterly earnings or the way she made them feel? Catherine looked at him with confusion, turning to understanding. Emma returned then with chocolate on her upper lip. She asked if Marcus was ready to go home. He said yes and took her hand. Before leaving, he turned back to Catherine. He said Emma loved music and stories, that she asked questions about everything, that being her father taught him what really mattered. Catherine watched them walk away. The man who wrote her song, and the little girl who looked at him like he hung the stars. She stood very still as the party continued around her. The next morning, Catherine called an emergency meeting with her executive team. She announced a new initiative. Winters Technologies would create a foundation, a scholarship program for artists and musicians who needed support, composers and painters and writers who worked day jobs to pay bills while their dreams waited. The executives looked at each other with confusion. This was not their usual territory. Catherine said it was now. She also announced she would be stepping back from daily operations. She would remain as chairman, but the CEO position would go to her very capable COO. She had other things she needed to do. That afternoon, she went to the address the HR department had given her. Marcus lived in a modest house with a small workshop in the garage. She knocked and waited. He opened the door, and his surprise was genuine. Catherine said she had been thinking about what he said, about leaving something in people's hearts. She asked if he would have coffee with her, not to revisit the past, but to understand what came after. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. They sat in his small kitchen, while Emma did homework at the dining table. They talked about the years that separated them, the paths they had walked alone. Marcus showed her his workshop, where he built custom furniture. He said it was good work, honest work. But sometimes late at night, he still wrote music. Catherine asked if she could hear something. Marcus looked uncertain, but Emma jumped up excited. She said her dad's songs were the best in the world. Marcus pulled out an old recording device. The melody that played was beautiful and bittersweet. Catherine recognized the bones of the song from the party, transformed and deepened by years. When it ended, she asked what he called it. Marcus said life goes on. Catherine smiled. She said she had a proposition. What if he did not have to choose between work and music anymore? What if someone believed in his talent enough to let him pursue it? Marcus understood what she was offering. He shook his head gently. He said he did not need rescuing. His life was small, but it was his. Catherine felt embarrassed heat in her cheeks. She started to apologize, but Marcus stopped her. He said if she wanted to do something meaningful, she should fund the dreams of young artists who still had time, people like they used to be, but maybe she could just come back for coffee sometimes. Maybe they could be friends. Friends who understood the roads not taken. Catherine found herself nodding. Over the following months, she did exactly that. Coffee became Saturday morning tradition. Emma joined them. They talked about everything and nothing. Catherine found herself laughing in a way she had forgotten. She attended Emma's school concert, met Marcus's small circle of friends. Slowly the walls she had built began to come down. The foundation launched with its first round of scholarships. Marcus helped review applications. He knew which young artists had real fire in them. Catherine discovered that wealth meant more when it opened doors for others. On a spring evening, Marcus invited Catherine to a small venue. He was performing publicly for the first time in decades. Emma sat beside Catherine in the audience, gripping her hand with excitement. When Marcus played, Catherine heard the life he had lived in every note, the joy and the sorrow, the love for his daughter, the dreams adapted rather than abandoned. The final piece was new. He called it Tomorrow's Song. It was full of hope. After the performance, Catherine told him it was beautiful. Marcus said he finally understood something. The symphony he wanted to write was never about fame. It was about connection, about touching hearts. He had been writing it all along, in the furniture he built with care, in the songs he played for Emma, in the patience he showed to a woman who broke his heart. Catherine realized she was crying again, happy tears this time. She said she spent 30 years building an empire, but in 6 months Marcus had helped her build something more important, a life. Marcus smiled and took her hand. Some melodies take a long time to resolve, he said, but they are worth the wait. Emma hugged them both and asked if this meant Catherine would come to her birthday party. Catherine said she would not miss it. As they walked out into the warm spring night, Catherine thought about the girl she was at 22, so certain that success meant sacrifice. Now at 53, she understood that real success meant making room for love. The melody Marcus wrote for her all those years ago had found its ending. Not in the past they lost, but in the present they chose. And perhaps in the future they would write together, one beautiful note at a time. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment telling us about a moment when life gave you a second chance. Your stories inspire us to keep sharing these tales of hope and redemption.